Since I spend most of my time talking about human phys, I thought I'd do a little something on plant physiology this morning while I'm messing with my tomatoes. So I am a pruner of tomato plants. There's several schools of thought as to whether you really need to or not, and probably in my small garden I probably don't necessarily need to prune them, since I'm not trying to maximize profit or anything, but I like to. And so the way we prune tomatoes is, most people will call them suckers. So what I'm going to try to do is remove all of these things from the tomato plant. And so what you should see is that here we have a leaf, and then in the plant phys world we would call that a node. Let's see if I can get that to come into focus. It's not going to. So this would be a node where this little one's growing up, and then we would have an internode up to the next leaf, another node, and then another internode. And so typically where these nodes are is where you'll get another little bit to grow. Most people call those suckers. I would call that lateral growth. And that lateral growth is typically suppressed somewhat as the plant grows in height. So up here would be what I would call the apical meristem. Right, so the plant's gonna, this variety is an indeterminate variety tomato, so it's going to keep growing as long as the season's good and doesn't get too hot and get enough water and all that. But there's a hormone produced up here, and that hormone, at least for a time, will suppress a lot of this lateral growth until it gets far enough away, and then that lateral growth will start coming on. So if I don't prune this, and here you can see a little one, but if I don't prune that off, if I don't take that off, then a lot of the nutrients and things that goes to the plant will end up in these little lateral growth shoots, and I don't want that. I want it to go to nice big leaves and nice big flowers and nice big fruits. So when I talk about pruning tomatoes, I just come in and I remove these suckers, or that lateral growth. And I try to stay below the next new flower. So these will be flowers, and that'll be where I get more tomatoes. And sometimes what happens is you can come down here to the bottom of the plant too. You'll see you'll get new plants forming at the bottom. And so I pull those off too. Again, we call those suckers, but that's just more lateral growth. And you can see that's a pretty substantial one. So if I remove those, then all of this ends up as a nice kind of tall tomato plant with flowers at pretty given intervals. The other thing I do to prune tomatoes is I'll come down about this time and I'll just start breaking off these really low leaves because tomatoes can get quite a few diseases from the soil as it rains and splashes up, things like fungus or blight, where tomatoes can get a blight. And so I'll just come in and I'll pretty heavily prune those off. And you can see if you look down the road this morning, I'm not afraid to prune them, and neither should you be. The other thing that does is kind of gives them a little more airflow around the plant, which increases pollination and also helps prevent disease, helps the leaves dry out when they get wet, which will prevent fungus from growing on them. But that's kind of how you prune and why you prune plants. Now, if I were to come up here at the top and I were to pinch the top off here, then this top would no longer produce, or there would no longer be auxin there, or the hormone that plants produce to kind of slow down that lateral growth. And so if I pinch that off, then I would get quite a few lateral growths to form at each of those nodes at the base of the leaves, and then that would make the tomato get really bushy. And so if you have something at home that's growing that you want to get bushy, one way you do that is just by trimming the top out of it.